Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sukhamatyantikam yadhyat buddhigrahyamatīndriyam vetti yatra na chaivayam sthitaschalati tattvataha yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate nadhikam tataha yasmin sthito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidya dukkha sanyogam viyogam yoga sangitam sanishchayena yoktavyaha yogo nirvinna chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kaman tyaktva sarvana sheshataha mana saivendriyagramam viniyamya samantataha shanai shanairuparame buddhya dhritigrahitaya atma samstham mana kritva na kinchidapi chintayet yato yato nischarati manaschanchalamasthiram tatastato niyamyaitat atmanyeva vasham nayet prashantamanasam yenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shantarajasam brahmabhutamakalmasham yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi vigatakalmashaha sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukhamashnute sarvabhutasthamatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chamayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachamena pranashyati. Hari Om. Namaskaram to everyone. So the last we were doing was the 29th verse, that the verses 29 to 32 speaks about the test of one's self-evolution or self-development. How do I go about actually testing my own spiritual development? As we all know, the first few verses spoke about the meditation and all the necessary adequate preparation required in the spiritual journey. And one who has done the adequate preparation and done the necessary meditation, ideally has to culminate in that ultimate goal of self-realization. As we remember, meditation is the gateway to self-realization. So if one does meditation in its purest and the intensified form, it gives about a transformational result, which is the attainment of self-realization. Now, how do you know at the absolute level and even at the relative level that you have evolved? So one such quality, which actually is covered in the next few verses, it talks about in the 29th verse. He says, can we have verse 29, please? He says, united to self by yoga. Yoga is only a ladder and only a means to get you to the self. So through yoga, yoga is a path. That's about all. Yoga is the roadmap. So united to the self through the path of yoga, he sees the self abiding in all beings. He identifies with the self, the Atman, the self abiding in all beings and all beings in the self. Such a person, sarvatra samadarshanaha. He sees the samatvam everywhere. He sees an equality everywhere. He sees a oneness everywhere. So this is the quality control. So when you identify with the self, you must experience, a perceiver of that self perceives the oneness. He sees the self in all beings. How is it you're able to see the self in all beings? You don't attempt to see the self there. It is never an attempt to see the self in others. The attempt and the effort is to invoke the self within. What you realize within is expressed outside. Whatever that resonates within truly percolates into every perception, action, emotion, and thought. It must be triggered within you. So once you identify the self, once you realize the self within, that is when you see the same self everywhere. Without you realizing, it is impossible to see the self in others. So it is an inward realization. It's a subjective realization, and then it becomes an objective experience. You must understand this. And this transformation not only fits into the absolute level, it fits in at every relative level. Unless and until it resonates within you, it has to be a subjective experience. Any discipline for that matter. If you want to impose a discipline into your organization, if you want to see a quality reflecting in your employees, in your workforce, in your team, whether it be it's a sports team, whether it be an organization, or whether it be a nation, or it could be a party, it could be a club. But as a leader, it should start with you. It should start with me. And when it resonates within me, then it will start reflecting outside. So the realization always is subjective and the experience follows is objective. So the effort is not to see God out there. The effort is to invoke God within. The moment I invoke the God within, instantly it starts reflecting everywhere. You can't do it the other way around. So he sees the self in all beings, in the self. Just like a simple example, you see yourself reflecting in every part of your body, don't you? You say, this head is me. The hair, whatever little is left is still me, little is left, but I'm trying to keep it, protecting it, but it is still my hair until it's gone. Once it's gone, it's no more my hair. Oh, my hair is gone. How can I can't get it back. But whatever is there, it's still mine. I identify with it, very dearly take care of it. and preserve it and keep it. The left hand is mine. The right toe is mine. My back has been really hurting me of late. Ayyo, I can't bend forward. I can't bend backward. My doctor has said you can't do that anymore. Sudhakar Garu, I know you had some health issues with your back. Do you ever hate your back? I said, I think I should remove the spine. It has been a problem to me for the past 10 years and rest of my life. I will not be able to do certain things. Can you go back, doctor, and say, I don't think I like the spine. Remove it. Can you say that?
No.
It is a part of me.
I am the best example of. I am the best example. I am living it.
It only reminded me because I know you have a severe back problem, and whenever we do meet, I keep inquiring, how is your back, and how is it serving you well? Is it helping you well, or is it bothering you? That in that sense, it flashed back. That's about all.
Yes, Guruji. It is there with me for the last 20 years. I don't know. It may go along with me only.
No, what can't be cured, we has to be endured, isn't it?
But still, I am happy with the rest of my body.
Absolutely. You have to be happy with it as well. You can't complain and say no, because it is me. It is a part of me. So it's as absurd as it may sound. A fellow went to a doctor, a dental doctor, and he said, I have a problem. Doctor said, yes, you have come to the right doctor. Don't worry, I'm very qualified. I do every possible thing with reference to dental. It will be taken care of. No issues. I comfort you. Said, what is the problem? Open up. He opens his mouth. He checks everything. I said, everything is fine. I don't know. What's your problem? No, doctor, I have a peculiar problem. I have very, very concerning. What? This particular teeth of mine, you see this teeth? Yeah, it is. And let me check once again. Nothing wrong with it. Everything is fine. I don't think there is any cavity, or there has never been a cavity, nor is there a cavity. Everything is fine. What is the problem with teeth? Doctor, every now and then this teeth is constantly biting my tongue. And I constantly keep hurting, and I keep bleeding, and then it takes a while for the tongue to recover. No doubt, it recovers, but then it's a pain, I want you to please remove the teeth. The doctor can't make sense of it. He says something, in fact, instead of removing the teeth, he says he doesn't need dental treatment, he needs psychiatric treatment. He'll first get him off the bench, and he says, sit across the table, and he'll talk to him. No doctor will ever remove the teeth, because any sensible fellow, any sane fellow will not remove that teeth, because it is me. Sarvatra samadarshanaha. That phrase has an apt meaning there. Sarvatra samadarshanaha. You see a oneness in every part of your body, because you see yourself in it, and you see everything in the self. And once you see that, there is a sarvatra, there is a oneness everywhere. There is no otherness, there is no hatred, there is no bitterness. Instantly that bitterness, that animosity, that otherness disappears. You would agree. How can you say, would you ever blame the teeth? Can you blame the teeth for biting the tongue? Or do you blame the tongue for coming in between the teeth? Whom do you blame? You file a case, Supreme Court, please make a judgment. Is it the problem of the teeth to have bit the tongue, or is it the problem of the tongue to come between the teeth? Unnecessarily, it keeps coming in and out, in and out. Can you be at your place? Why are you constantly coming in between? You have a job to play the job. The teeth has a job to play, let it play job. Why are you fighting at each other? Would you ever complain? Even if anything happens, you will never ever complain that. Now, can you reflect that? Can you actually reflect that principle in every walk of your life? There will be people like teeth biting that soft tongue. There will be people like the tongue, unknowingly, unwillingly, they'll come interfere with others' works, but there should not be any hatred, there should not be any bitterness, there should not be any otherness. So the verse is only saying, once you reach that state, there is no, in fact, the Ishavasya Upanishad gives it a real powerful message in the same spirit. It gives a very powerful message. And the Ishavasya Upanishad, the 7th mantra, says, Tatra ko moha ka shoka ekatvam anupashyatah. That's all. One line. Tatra ko moha ka shoka ekatva manupashyatah. Tatra ka shokaha. Where is grief? Shokaha. Tatra ko moha. Where is delusion? For a man who is the perceiver of oneness, one who has that perception of oneness, there is no grief, there is no delusion. Saparyaga shukrama kayama vranamasna virago shuddhama papa vidham. It goes on, you know. But the crux is to be able to develop that identity, that capacity to see that oneness. In the animal kingdom, if you look, there are times an ostrich chases a lion away. The lion is the king of the jungle. An ostrich is a mere bird. An ostrich chases a lion away because it comes too close to his little ones. You know, the lion is coming to kill the little ostrich, and the mother chases it away. Why is the ostrich able to do that? How can an ostrich chase a lion away? What's the fundamental bottom line of it? Bhartima, why do you think?
When, as a mother, I can say so that when the maternal instinct rises in the mother or in the parent, so you know there is so much strength and power of the self, or I don't know, it comes at even impossible at that, even in like God will come, the mother will say first I will tend to my child, and I will, you know, that sort of, it's a very powerful strength that comes through that, the emotion maybe of saving the child, or happens like that.
It's the sheer power of love, isn't it? It's the sheer power of identification, isn't it?
Yes.
As
yes.
you say, the motherly instinct. So the bird identifies with the egg or with its
yes.
offspring. Providence has created it, given that, and we all experience it. But then what is the mistake we all do? We all know what that power is, isn't it? As you said, it's a force to reckon. Even God were to come, we can't separate that bond or love. You know, it's like an example I'm giving, a lion. But what is the mistake you and I do to this love?
We most of the time we think that the love in the form of a selfish love, like we put labels on it, and we do not think that love is actually unconditional. It's the difference of that ego.
In fact, you answered it. What we make the problem, what we end up doing is we qualify that love, we distort it, we destroy it. By limiting that love, we are not allowing that feeling which we experience of oneness to spread beyond that I and my. So what we all experience is love, but that pure love gets qualified with selfishness, isn't it?
Yes.
And when and in fact, the next verse I'll explain this, expand this further. Thereafter, anybody who satisfies or caters to your ego, you seem to love them. Is that the love that we are talking about? Is that the identification the verse is talking about? Not at all. Far from it. Far from it. So when love gets tarnished with your selfishness, the question is, what does it become? What is that term? When love gets tarnished or tainted with selfishness. Wonderful, Bhartima. Your comments were very perfect, spot on. Let me ask this question. Venkatramanji, if I could ask you, when this love or identification gets tarnished with selfishness, what does it transform itself into?
Let me just attempt it. Maybe some kind of a greed, lust, or something like that.
It is a very negative emotion, though. It is indeed a negative emotion, but it is not lust or greed. In fact, lust or greed comes when your desires are fed. You become greedy, you become avaricious. You feed your desire. That's another kind of emotion. But here, when the emotion you have, which is a pure emotion, love is a pure feeling, which you experience to certain areas. But when that gets tarnished with selfishness, it expresses as?
Obsession?
No. In fact, it expresses as attachment.
Oh.
Isn't it?
Right.
So the equation is love plus selfishness equals attachment. Attachment is an unhealthy relationship to an object or being. Conditional relationship. Attachment is a conditional relationship, and you can have a conditional relationship in any relationship, and that spoils it all with clauses and conditions. It's full of expectations, and wherever there is an expectation and there's a condition, it causes a considerable anxiety. It causes a considerable restlessness. It disturbs you. There is no peace. It could happen in a parent and a spouse. It can happen. The parents can have a heavy expectation from a child, and that expectation can cause a great uneasiness in the parent. It can happen in a working relationship. It can happen between spouses. It can happen between siblings. It can happen between anybody. It can happen between a student and a guru. If I have a certain expectation, it causes a restlessness in me. But if I want to share this wisdom, and if I give it without an expectation, without having any condition in what role you play, I'd have done my part. If my feeling is not based on what you do to me or to the cause, but what I have an identity with you, I have no issues. The moment I entertain an anxiety or an expectation, I'm asking for trouble. So if I can remove the anxiety, if I can rather remove the selfishness, the expectations from my relationship, I make that emotion pure. It can be any working relationship. If I can, how do I purify it? I can purify it is by removing my selfishness and my expectations, my ego out of the equation. As Bhartima said, I take that out of it. Instantly, the relationship becomes pure. I'm not talking of what other person's expectations are. I have no control over that. As long as my expectations, my ego is out of the equation, I have a pure relationship. If you don't understand, bring in expectations and you see how it spoils it all. It messes it up. Now, if we are able to apply that in every situation, and he is only talking from an absolute standpoint where you see the self, you see the oneness everywhere, that's a very high state. In fact, it's because of attachment that you develop hatred towards others. When you're attached, In fact, attachment to someone is equals to loving yourself. Remember that. It may sound absurd, but when you're attached to someone, is actually you're loving yourself. Why am I attached? What did I say attachment as? Reddy Garu, how did we define attachment as?
Pranam Guruji, we defined attachment love plus selfishness. Is
Attachment
attachment
is a selfish relationship,
yes,
isn't it?
Yeah.
So when we say attachment is loving yourself, what do we mean by that?
to go by equation point of view, selflessness.
No. Selflessness doesn't come anywhere in the pictures. I'm still with attachment.
Okay.
Let's say we both have a certain relationship, and if I claim to love you because you are in some way trying to satisfy me, I say I love you. That is a conditional relationship, isn't it?
Yes.
Which we call it as attachment.
Right.
I have a certain feeling for you. I'm able to accommodate you in my heart because you are satisfying me in some way. All right.
Yes.
Which we call as attachment. Now, what I'm saying is attachment is nothing but self-love, loving oneself. I'm just giving a conclusion to that concept.
Yes.
When I have an attachment to someone is actually loving oneself. Does it make sense?
Not able to.
Not able to?
Yeah.
Am I making sense? I don't know. Sometimes I doubt, am I making sense myself, So much is going on. Sometimes also, you can give grace, Sometimes Guruji also goes, he's off weather and sometimes he makes irrational statements. You'll also give a little provision. Even the best of machineries also fail, You have to service them. Or maybe service is not happened, it is malfunctioning. You have to give little percentage and forgive. From engineering point of view, Reddy Garu, you agree, isn't it?
Yeah,
everything has a needs a repair, regular repair, no?
Equation is perfect, and you need some tolerance for the imperfection.
Thank you for being so tolerant, but that doesn't mean
I can
am I no, but am I making sense? Does the statement make sense? Attachment is nothing but self-love. The opposite of that is when you love someone, you love for what the other person is. You don't think of yourself. Love is nothing but a feeling or identification with others, irrespective of what he or she does to you. But the moment you claim to have a feeling for them because they're able to satisfy you, you're actually loving yourself. So you're actually fooling yourself by saying, I love you. You don't love me, you love yourself. You're loving me because I'm satisfying you. The moment I don't agree with you, what happens to your love for me? Go to hell with you, man.
Yes.
Sir, let me be very objective. I don't get carried away with all the love and emotional respect I receive. How long does it take for any one of you to drop me?
It's a moment.
A moment. It just takes a moment for you to drop me, a moment for you to block me, a moment for you to tarnish me, a moment for you to dismiss me. Isn't it? How long does it take? It doesn't take long. I'm sound establishment in the understanding, but I don't expect that. So I am not loving you because you are satisfying me today. I have seen people who stood against and they've come and fell at my feet. I've seen it all. I didn't hate them. I didn't feel that I should have any other feeling when they chose not to stand by. nor did I start jumping with excitement and hug them because they fall at my feet. Why should I do that? If I have an axe to grind in the act I'm doing, I will be jumping with your love and sinking with your disagreement of mine. You may not agree what I'm doing. How does that make my love work any less or more? It shouldn't, isn't it? Just because you are taking a few steps along with me or more steps along with me, does that make my step add any spring to my feet? It shouldn't, isn't it?
That's true.
I should have a constant emotion irrespective of what you throw back at me, whether acceptance or rejectance. My job is to have a certain feeling of identification with you all. You may understand me, you may not understand me, you may be a support, you may be removing that support, you may not be a support. How does it matter to me, man? So that is what we got to bring in to practice this quality. How do you practice this quality? Try to make your relationship with people devoid of expectations, selfishness, and ego. Believe me, your relationship becomes pure, your relationship becomes divine.
That's true.
And the law of karma works, the law of cause and effect works. If you throw that, it somehow finds it boomerang's way back to you. It will happen. This is the law of nature. You can't violate the law of nature because every cause has an effect, isn't it? But you are not doing it to prove a point. You are not doing it to transform another. You're doing it for, as I said, it's a subjective transformation and then it's an objective experience. The opening statement I made of the class, the transformation always has to happen within. It's a subjective transformation and then it's an objective experience. I'll explain this with the different concept in the next verse, but before I move on, Venkatramanji wants to clarify something. So please, sir.
Yeah, Guruji, while this is understood very clearly, one small doubt which I have is, will that also give an impression of the individual saying, you know, I don't care about what others think, or, you know, I don't care about any of your feelings or reactions or stuff like that. While at one end, this looks very logical and sound, you know, we should get detached about the outcomes and the attachment. But on the other hand, do we leave that kind of an impression in certain situations about people perceiving us to be, you know, slightly different, saying that, oh, he doesn't care about anything or stuff like that?
No. Sir, in fact, I understand where you're coming from because you may be perceived as someone who is careless or cold or, you know, not concerned.
Arrogant types. Yeah.
Arrogant or unconcerned, you know.
Exactly.
Now, the person who I spoke to yesterday is right in that class now. And I don't want to mention name. And I took the effort of calling that person and just clarifying my act on screen. Not that I did anything wrong, but just to make that person feel that I'm doing with this objective, just to make you understand, because it means a lot to me that I must not be misunderstood. Now, whether that person puts me at a pedestal or puts me down, it doesn't affect my action. Because my action inspired by the goal, not by the fruits of my action. In fact, there's a very powerful message in that when I say that an action should be motivated by the goal, but not by the fruits of action. This action may have an acceptance, may have a rejectance. This should not dampen my ability to perform action. My action is driven by the goal. But that doesn't mean I become unmindful of things. I must be very mindful of my actions. I don't take a walk, but then I walk over a flower garden and then I trample the flowers and destroy them. No, you can say, I've just gone for a walk, but I must be mindful where I walk as well, isn't it? There's a pathway given in the garden. You can't walk over those beautiful, tender flowers and then destroy them. So emotions matter, sir. You've got to respect that feeling and emotion. You must have that compassion. You must have that empathy. You must have that feelings. In fact, just this morning, I was just scribbling some quote, and then I wrote it down, and it is something I would like to share. What it says is, hot heads and cold hearts never solved anything. Never solve anything. Hot heads and cold hearts never solve anything. As I said, arrogant fellow, hot-headed fellow. Oh, I know what I am. Why should I care for what you people think of me? I am doing the right thing. I am going on. I do on my things. Is that what you're saying? Perhaps, is that what the perception is? Nay, I got to have a level-headed. I can't be arrogant and think too big of myself. So I can't be hot-headed, nor I can be cold-hearted. So these two are extremities. So if I can ask you, sir, what is the opposite of this, sir? Opposite of hot head and cold heart. It's a very beautiful coinage. Could you please unmute, sir? I'm asking because you raised the point.
Level-headed, balanced, cool.
There are two things here: hot head, cold heart.
The cool head.
Absolutely. You must have a cool head and a warm heart.
Warm heart, yeah.
Means you must have that feelings for this. You must have that thoughts and concern for this. Not because other person is doing something for you, but because that emotion matters. Village Preacher, the poem written by Oliver Goldsmith. It talks of a village preacher who gave his heart, his love. He shared his griefs and love and feelings with everyone. But all his thoughts were rest in heaven, he says. And the village preacher, who were his friends whom he shared his grief, his love, and emotions with? All his friends were, he says, a broken soldier, a spendthrift, a thief, a beggar. His friends were a broken soldier, a spendthrift, a thief, a beggar. Ramji, when I talk of these four names, what comes to your mind? And these were his dear friends, and he shared his love and concern and feelings with them.
Namaste, Guruji. So I
Yes,
think the kind of people that are mentioned, normally you don't go close to them. Normally you develop a kind of a feeling of keeping them away because of their nature of the kind of work they have done. But I think by being close to them, he is actually identifying himself with them, or with their you can say mental state, or their what goes on inside them. So like everybody has a story, so all the four of them also have their own stories. So probably he understood their story, and then they understood his story through heart-to-heart chats. That is what I can feel about that. That there is no one who is above this type of relationship.
You're right. You're very right. In fact, just putting in the words which we have just been talking, he had an emotion, he had something to share, knowing well that they could not have given anything back to him. They don't have anything, so he has nothing to gain from them. But yet you choose to identify with them because he had a pure feeling for what their state is. You can't expect anything from a beggar. Perhaps a sense of appreciation for what you do, but still you will have to do something to him. A broken soldier or a thief. All these people have been discarded by the society, and yet he had a feeling for them. So when you get into a relationship, I must do this because I will get something in return. That is a conditional relationship. That is attachment. That is exactly against the principle this verse and the next few verses are going to advocate, isn't it?
But I have one question, Guruji.
Yes, please.
Should allow. All the relationships in life are not similar, right? We deal with different types of people for different purposes.
Yes.
I mean, like you mentioned earlier, love plus selfishness more or less becomes like a transaction. It's a transactional relationship.
Correct.
And so you will have many transactional relationships in life because you may have to deal in many aspects as a part of your livelihood. Okay, so it may be, for example, I'll just, if I can take 2 minutes, I'll just explain one of my own experiences.
Please.
So when I was the managing director of Cyanamide, I was given a task by my headquarters from US that I have to sell my factory. Okay. Now, it was a very tough decision, tough thing for me to implement because I was looking after them. There were 350 workers who were dependent on the company, and I had to see that they are not displaced, they don't lose their jobs. And a lot of those workers, I was worried that what will happen to their families and things like that. So when you take some such things, I mean, one thing you mentioned earlier, empathy. I think empathy is something which leaders in many fields are advised to practice, and this is something which we use even in our business relationships, in the job, also in corporates. We are always advised that don't be someone who achieves results, but on your way there are many dead bodies. That type of things will not take you anywhere because these are all very temporary things. We have to work with people, empathize with them, and then take care of their. So sometimes from a position of power, also you will deal with people. When you deal with people, not in the way the preacher dealt with, but you may deal with similar type of people in your organization from a position of power. When you do that, also empathy becomes very important. And how you actually, because you have to get some work done from them, right? In return for that, you will have to show empathy and understand their difficulties, understand their problems, and provide solutions. As a boss, if you don't provide solutions, then you are not a good boss in a working situation. Because then you are saying, I am only a part of your problem, I am not a part of your solution. Right. So these practical difficulties we face. So when I had to sell this factory, I was feeling very disturbed. So I went to my previous boss, who was my guru. So I asked him, what should I do? He said, you have to do this because this is a requirement of your job, but you do it in such a way that people don't suffer, and do it with a human face, and take care of them and take care of their families, and then do it in such a way that there is you don't go out with a feeling of guilt, and you do it with your proper heart, and apply your heart also, not only your brain, but apply your heart also. So I did that. I mean, I took care of them. I made sure that they don't lose their jobs in the contract. I made sure that, and then they were all paid some money. And because these are all small-time workers and they get a lot of money in hand, I asked them to bring their wives to the factory at that day when the money is being paid. And I kept a financial consultant there who advised the wife how to invest, how to get that money invested. Otherwise,
sir, they will advise the financial consultant, sir. That one mistake you did. That one mistake you did, sir. The wives will consult everybody around. What are you saying, sir?
But the wife should know how much husband is getting. At that level, the wives are not told by the husbands how much money they are getting, and then that type of situations.
I can understand.
So at the end of it, in fact, the union came and told me they blessed me. They said, "You have done a great job. You have made sure that everybody goes with a good heart for you, good feeling for you, in spite of the fact that they're all changing their employment." So what I'm trying to say is that when you deal with people in transactions where you are in a position of power, this really becomes challenging, because I think it's much easier to do it when you are not in that position of power.
In fact, sir, as you have been an example for many in that situation to appreciate your kind gesture, and that how you brought your leadership and touched lives of people. Perhaps we need to redefine who is a true leader. It's just not defined by facts and figures and numbers and the profits and the turnovers, isn't it? As you said, you can't have a heap of dead bodies at the end of, it's like as if you're in war. It's not a question of winning the battle. It's a question of protecting your team, and enriching them every walk of the way. So, and you had it in you to make it happen. I don't see a reason why it should not be an integral part of any leadership quality, that every leader has that feeling. Now, as I've said, I took an example of my reason to connect with someone. And when I connected, that person said, "I don't expect this call from you. Please don't ever think that way. Now, in your position, whatever you do and say is accepted. You are the guru." But I did not take that. I felt that I had, in fact, the person was so uncomfortable me saying that a few times. And I'm not trying to pat my back here. I'm saying, as I said, you can't solve things with a hot head and a cold heart. You got to have humility, and you must have that emotion, empathy, that feeling of identification. In fact, in spirituality, in Vedantic terms, we say a perfect action is where there is a blend of the head and the heart. There has to be a synergy within. Again, coming back to the same point, unless until it's a subjective experience, and a subjective experience is where there is a harmony with the feelings and the understanding. Many a time they're in a tug of war. The head and heart collide. But once you're able to find a way to integrate it, believe me, it is pure music. Work becomes divine. You become a role model. So it's like you're trying to build a huge skyscraper. You don't start by getting the material and then start constructing and say, let's see, once we reach the 30th floor, how do we go about it? No, you spend days, months, perhaps years planning on the drawing board, getting the designers, the architects, everything. You do everything on paper first, don't you? Exactly the same way, once you have this knowledge clearly embedded in your thought processes, when situations come and challenge you, this wisdom trickles down into your actions effortlessly. So the more we reflect and absorb this wisdom, the more these values are injected into every sector, whether you're talking of your experience in the corporate sector. If you imagine everybody in the organization has a feeling for each other. I don't have to take a knife to stab at the other person. I'm not waiting for an opportunity to pull him down or to prove I'm superior to other person. Can I stand for my colleague who has not performed well, because we are one in the team? That kind of an empathy. Can I give credit to one when due credit comes to you? It's that kind of a camaraderie, that kind of a team spirit. That kind of what the verse philosophically here is saying, you must have samadarshanaha, sarvatra, you must see a oneness. So its relevance is far beyond words, sir. In fact, you can't, it's beyond the weight of gold. I tell you, the way it comforts you and elevates you is, I have no words to see how it can translate into our lives. And the opposite of that, and the price we pay. So the moment you hate someone, and when somebody is going through difficult times, what is the thing we say? That fellow deserves it. Don't you say that? Example, let's say a person, I remember of this context, when, the famous Bollywood hero Sanjay Dutt, isn't it? That fellow? He got into serious trouble because he did whatever he did with the drugs or guns or whatever, and then he was imprisoned, isn't it? Everybody said, these people, they take law into their hands and they take too much of themselves. These fellows deserve it. Good, that fellow went to jail. But whereas his near and dear, what were they feeling? They never said that fellow deserves it. They said, no, my son is innocent. They appealed to the court, to the president, please, he didn't do it. Where there is a love and identification, you would never ever say he deserves it. So please watch your words when you say that they deserve it. No. The moment you say that, that means you have no heart for that person. You have no feeling for that person. No feeling. So, in fact, I would say go one step ahead. It all starts with the feeling. The knowledge is only to contain, not to curb the feeling. You must have the feeling, but feeling alone, if you operate, it becomes, what happens if you only operate on feelings? So much talk of this love and feeling and empathy, but mere feelings, if you have and operate there, what would happen? Vaidyanathanji, what would happen if you don't engage your intellect and just operate on feelings?
It will be impractical. We'll end up not achieving the goal of the company if we simply were operating on at an emotional level without bringing logic and reasoning into it. So feelings is vital to guide it, but it cannot be the only way of making the decision or relationship moving forward.
Correct. You must have that emotion, but it can't be driven on emotions. It needs to be driven on reason and logic and intellect. So that marriage is integral. These two are integral, isn't it? All right.
True.
Wonderful. I think let's take this understanding forward. We'll chant verse 30. Now, what I have noted is that I see, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2. I only see 25 people on my screen here. Okay. I think some of you who have activated your cameras, it goes into the next page, and I find it, I am not doing that as frequently to see those who are on the next page. Like, say, for example, if somebody is on the next page and you want to say something, you may raise your hand, but I would not be able to see you. Okay. So I think, Gayatrima, how do you do that? Are you there, Gayatrima? Yeah. Is there an option where, how do you raise your hand? Can you just quickly guide everyone?
Yeah, in that reactions, there is an icon. If they raise and you cannot see it, probably then they'll have to put it at least in the chat box. There is an icon, raise hand. Then it will come in the front.
Yeah, as long as you know of that feature, the moment you click that, I think you'll automatically be
yes,
brought to the screen where it will be visible. So so if you have anybody had to say something, I have missed it, please bear with me, is because I'm not able to see. I would lovely to see that most of you are, and when I say most of you, only half of you are put on your cameras. There are over 55 people, but only 25 people are putting on your camera. I would love to see all of you. Believe me, the kind of connect we have is that's the least perhaps we could do in an interaction like this to make it optimum, but there is a way out of it. So please share. If you have anything to ask, feel free. Okay. All right. So 30, please, Ma. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. He continues the same thought into this verse. He says, he who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati. Everything in me, I am not lost to him. Tasya aham na pranashyami. I don't perish to him. I am not lost to him, nor is he lost to me. Sachame na pranashyati. Nor is he lost to me. Very poetic way he puts it, the same principle. One who is merged with the Atman, he who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me. This perception is a permanent awareness. The moment you click or attune to this perception, this is irrevocable. You don't fall back from that perception of awareness or oneness. It's a total and a permanent awareness. It's an awareness that you develop in every perception, every action, every emotion, every thought. In every walk of the way, you have this awareness. Now, as I've said, if someone caters to you, and if you develop a positive emotion to that person, that is not spiritual. That is not a spiritual quality. As I've said, these verses are giving us the test for self-development. When somebody is kind to you, and if you're kind to that person, that is not spiritual. But let's say if somebody is unkind to you, and yet you reciprocate with an attitude of kindness, with an attitude of forgiveness, that is being spiritual. And use that barometer, use that measuring scale to test to what extent are you in a position to forgive someone who has been very unkind to you, who has been ruthless to you, who has been inconsiderate to you, who has been unmindful to you, who has no value for you, who thinks you're a piece of rubbish or garbage. What is your feeling towards them? So if this is the, now there are two things. The verse says, the verse doesn't talk of the second part. We are talking of the second part. First part is only a matter of fact. Matter of fact, what's a matter of fact? The matter of fact is, see the self everywhere. He sees me everywhere. I'm not lost to him. He is not lost to me. This is a matter of fact. This is known as, in Sanskrit, it is known as Lakshana Vakya. It's a statement of fact. Once you reach the self, once you have developed that awareness, you are established in it, you're lodged in it, you're rock seated in it, then you don't fall back. There's no reversal. You're there established. That's an absolute state. Sorry, Hariji, you're missing something here.
I said it's a no path of return, because we have already gone there.
Yes. It's a path of no return. It's
No
a
return.
you don't fall back from that. That's an absolute state. But it's a long way ahead. It's a long way ahead. So let's not talk about it. What we need to address is at the relative level. So how do you start practicing what it is? So you got to start practicing this quality in areas where you can't identify. Where you have a clear difficulty, where you are not able to identify with someone, you got to start identifying with someone. You may say, my husband is a psycho. I've had people, in fact, I don't want to mention names. I've had people coming and telling me, my husband is a clear psycho. He's going through psychiatric treatment also. He's a mad fellow. Huh? You may say he's a mad fellow. That may be a fact. But then what about your feeling for that person? What about your feeling for that person? Could constantly complain and complain and complain. So what you got to invoke that quality when somebody is unkind to you. Your spiritual quality is measured by your responses to that act of unkindness. That is your spirit. Not when somebody is kind to you. I'm courteous to you, you're courteous to me, no big deal about it, man. I'm rude to you, you're rude to me, there's nothing big deal about it. Somebody is, in fact, the worst of it is, you know what is the worst quality in this context? Harishji, can you think of the worst quality in this context? I'm kind to you, you're kind to me, no big deal. I'm rude to you, you're rude to me is no big deal. What's worst here?
You repay kindness with unkindness. That means
You repay?
Kindness with unkindness. That means somebody is kind to me, I am unkind to that person.
That's the worst of all. You, 1 minute, Setuji, I'm just coming to you. So as rightly said, the worst quality is I'm ungrateful to someone who is a benefactor. Somebody has done good to me, I'm unkind to them. This is the worst of all qualities. Worst. You can't ever do that. And the best of all is to be kind to those who are unkind. And there are grades of people, there are grades of levels you can belong to. You can say, oh, I am very kind, sir. To what extent? If somebody were to hang you, like you hang your kurta on your hook, you know, after I go back home, I remove the kurta, I change my dress, I hang my kurta on the hook and it's hanging there. So imagine somebody hangs you like your kurta and shirt are hanged in the hanger. What would you do? They're not hanging your image in thin air. They're hanging you as a person. The great Christ was hung on pegs and nails on a cross in the square. And he said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Look at that act. Look at that grandeur of the capacity to forgive when you're being nailed in the cross, on the cross in the square. Like you hang your kurta, they hanged him. And he said, Father, forgive them. That perhaps is epitomization of forgiveness. Epitomization. It can't be any greater than that. Tomorrow somebody talks ill about you, who can talk like that? I'm going to make sure you fellow get it back, and you want to take every possible way. You want to insult him, especially you'll remember that after many, many years, you'll remember that and purposely insult that fellow in the meeting. This fellow must get it back. Where is that and where is this? I'm not saying we all of that caliber, but you and I may forgive, but then what are the grades of forgiveness? You can go right up to that level. Forgive their unkind acts. So how deep can you dig to bring out that quality of forgiveness? The Sanskrit word for forgiveness. Anybody know what that Sanskrit word is? The quality of forgiveness. What's the Sanskrit word? I only want that word. Anybody? The Sanskrit word. I'm not testing you all here. I'm just asking if you all know, just to make you all think. Wow. So many of you all contributed. Correct. Kshami. It comes from the root is kshami, then kshama. You know, the same, we borrow it in our colloquial mother tongue also, it comes, you know, kshama, kshamapan, you know, you're forgiving the other person. So the root of that word is kshami. It comes in interestingly, so it comes in the 12th chapter of the Gita, in the 13th verse, it comes. Please read that. And it talks of the 35 qualities of a devotee of God. It says a devotee of God has this quality of forgiving. He forgives people for their wrongdoings. And you must make rational sense. I'll make a rational sense how to apply this, how to forgive. Before that, Setuji wants to say something. Okay, Ji? All right. Okay. Right. So how do you make a rational sense of this quality? How do you make a rational sense of the quality of forgiving another person? How do you forgive another person? Now, first, there are two interpretations to this. Two interpretations to this. Or you can say two understandings. The first is when you look at a person and when you look at their actions, you should understand that each one of them is helplessly doing things according to their own nature. They are operating as per their gunas. They are operating as per their vasanas. So they are helplessly functioning. So when you understand them as they are operating on their vasanas, I would say, where is the question of forgiveness? Isn't it? It is their nature. They are functioning that way. In fact, there's a saying, to understand all is to forgive all. If you understand each one to be what they are, you've actually forgiven them. So you understand them as their helpless expression of their vasanas. A person behaves in a corrupt way. What should be your reaction to that person? A person is corrupt in his thought processes, in his dealings, in his thinking. So in this understanding, Tinkima, how do you relate to this person of a person who is a corrupt dealing?
I think we would need to understand, as you just said, that this is their swabhav. Empathy, from the point of empathy, doesn't mean I agree with what they do, but perhaps maybe just enter their world to see what is causing that way of behavior. And I think if one is little high up on the spiritual ladder, then definitely not condemning or, mocking them or something. And maybe just see the person is not a bad person, but is doing an act which is, which again, according to me, may be incorrect or a sin. But if they don't feel guilty or they say this is the norm, unless I'm corrupt, unless I pay a bribe, I will never get the tender passed. So I have to do it. So that is their way of thinking. So from the spiritual point of view, not to condemn or mock anybody. It's their life. As you say, I have nothing to do with it. And I must operate from who I am as a person and not go to their level. Because they are not at my level of morality or ethics. I should not be rude or be discourteous or anything. I need to be who I am. They are who they are.
I think,
Sorry.
हम एक बात पूछे आप पूरा रामायण बोल दिए.
Sorry.
Not that you don't have to be sorry. What the question was, the question is, if somebody is corrupt and you become a victim of their corrupt dealings. Let's say you wanted to buy a house, and somebody, the person who sold a house, trapped you in some corrupt dealings. He cheated you, and you are a victim of their corrupt act. Question is, how should you understand that act of corruptedness, where you are a victim of their crooked thought and action and deed? How should you perceive? I'm not saying you endorse it. I'm not saying you lie low and accept it. But what is the, okay, before you even ask this question, what is the reason of embracing this quality of forgiveness? You must understand this primarily. If you don't understand this, then you may think, oh, am I accepting and giving a license to them to do whatever they want to do, and I become a victim of their actions? It is not so. By you forgiving another person mentally does not mean you're giving a license for them to do whatever they wish to do. For example, you have many people in your organization. You must be able to implement this quality of forgiveness, which is, I said, to understand all is to forgive all. So I'm trying to talk from the first point. So when you understand them, what should be understanding? Think a simple one-line answer.
Their swabhava is that they're helpless.
They are helplessly operating on their gunas. That's all.
And vasanas.
So they're operating on their gunas and vasanas. So instantly you give them a benefit of doubt. You give them rather than you sitting and complaining, you say, that is perhaps that's how his upbringing, that's his nature.
Yeah.
I can't do much with it. I can't sit and complain. So you come to understanding that gunas are functioning. Now, let me ask this fundamental question. What is the reason you are trying to inculcate or embellish this quality of forgiveness? What's the fundamental reason? Shivaji. Sorry, ma. Shivaji is eternally smiling. I was wondering. His camera is frozen. No wonder. He's put his picture there and he's off screen.
Yeah, I'm okay.
You're giving a beautiful pose to us. I was wondering how come you are like smiling Buddha, you are smiling all the time. Laughing Buddha. Enna Shivaji, Solungo. What is the reason?
Okay. Yeah. What's the reason?
What's the reason you inculcate this quality of forgiveness? What's the primary reason?
To set yourself free. You can't do anything. You know that he's already there, what his vasanas, his gunas. To set yourself free, you have to forget, not for his sake, for our own sake.
It looks like you have not connected your the class to the. You're not connected the Zoom to your phone. Your network is bad, sir. Sir, your network is poor. Your voice is breaking, but we see your beautiful smile though. Yes, but I got what he said. The reason you are developing or wanting to develop, the need to develop this quality of forgiveness is to GB Garu.
This is for myself. If I want to reach a goal, if anybody, if I'm not a dustbin, if someone is throwing, I have to keep it with myself. So
correct.
So we have to reach our goal. If you don't forgive, it hangs on and it creates all problems for myself. So there is the daya, karuna, kshama, then ultimate unconditional love. This is, we can't reach to unconditional love unless if you stop this. So correct. The reaching from daya, karuna, there is a much difference. Daya,
yes,
There's people have that meaning difference between daya and karuna. Daya is the only our kith and kin, our own people, when they are suffering, we give support or help, anything. But karuna is not like that. Karuna is even someone is an accident who we don't know. We go and see that some help, either ambulance calling or some help to do. That is the level. Because daya to karuna I come, from karuna to kshama I to come. So kshama is that forgiveness, which is a stage. If I don't reach that stage, I can't go to the love, the pure love, unconditional love. So to reach
Correct.
that, we have to rise one by one.
Correct. Absolutely. In fact, so as you rightly said, you are forgiving another person because you want to liberate yourself.
Yes.
Imagine you take to heart, you hold on to it, and you allow that to linger, and then it's like every thought is like a dagger stabbing you. You're never liberated, and you will not be able to embrace positive oneness if you're not able to uplift. Perfect. Very true. Very true. Perfect, sir. Sitaramji.
Actually, what was mentioned, that when you forgive somebody, it liberates you. There is another chemical reaction which happens in this. When you have negative thoughts about somebody, whether it's revenge or anger or feeling of hatred, it releases chemicals called cortisol in your body, in your blood, and that leads to a lot of mental agitation and trouble. This cortisol is just the opposite of endorphin, which you get when you love somebody or when you do a good deed or when you forgive someone. So actually there is a reason for forgiving somebody, because it lets you free from this cortisol and gives you mental peace. As one of my friends always says, that forgiveness is an antivirus. It cleans your mind.
Yes, very true. Very, very true. Very true. In fact, I will leave you all with this phrase, and we'll come back to this beautiful quality, because we are all challenged in the course of our actions. Because when we interact with the world does not fit into what you expect from it. So there is a disparity between your standards and the standards of the world that operates. So how are you able to embrace, accept, and deal with the world harmoniously? It's paramount. Otherwise, I can create a hell within me, and it destroys everything inside me and outside me. But the only way if I'm able to get along with the world around me is to first and foremost accept them for what they are. The second thing is we see what can be done. Can anything be done about it? That's secondary. But first come to an acceptance that this is what my team is. This is what my child is. This is what my family is. This is what my country is. This is what my government is. Accept it. And once you do that, instantly you are liberating yourself from the expectations which you are having and the unnecessary mental agony you go through. So it just truly liberates you. I'll give you this beautiful quote by Mark Twain. We've heard it time and again, but it's so beautiful. He says, "Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet releases." Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet releases as the foot crushes it. And this quote, I repeat, why forgiveness is the fragrance the violet releases. The violet is a flower. So when you crush the violet flower with your feet, what it does, it releases a fragrance. So forgiveness should be like that flower which releases the fragrance when the foot crushes it. When somebody trounces you with their ego, don't show back your ego to them. You release that fragrance of forgiveness. You don't have to stand up and say, okay, I forgive you for what you have done. You will get into a fight. It is not a physical expression of forgiveness. It's a mental attitude of forgiveness. So you don't hold on to something for what they have done. It's a mentally you're forgiven them. So there are two standpoints. As I said, there are two interpretations. So one is to understand them as their gunas functioning. Second is to raise your actions and attitude to such a level that you feel a disparity from where you are to where they are. You feel you're in a grander position. You're on a vantage point with reference to their action, and say, you forgive them. If you say, from the first interpretation, you say, who am I to forgive them? They are what they are, isn't it? Second interpretation is you actually grow in stature, that their actions are dwarfed, that they don't hurt you. See them as childish actions and you forgive them. Okay. I will have to come back. Annapurna, if you please don't mind, you can connect with me. If you have any concern, we'll have to come back to this verse again. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.